Most people confuse attraction with connection. Attraction fades, but when someone feels a soul connection with you, that never leaves them. And here's what I've discovered. You don't even have to guess. There are specific, unmistakable signs that reveal it. Once you notice them, you'll never question where you stand again. I am Liz Rose, a relationship expert, author, and researcher of emotional dynamics between men and women. For years, I have studied attraction, male behavior, emotional intelligence, and the patterns that bring people together or drive them apart. Today, I want to share with you what I have learned through my research, my professional experience, and the thousands of stories I have encountered throughout my journey. Let me break down what I've observed in the connections that truly matter. First, the magnetic pull. When someone feels that deeper bond with you, there's a pull I can't explain with logic alone. They're drawn to you in ways even they can't articulate, and they don't fight it. They surrender to it. Second, pure comfort. This is what I notice most. They don't need to impress you. They don't wear a mask around you. They can be messy, quiet, silly, vulnerable, and they know it's safe with you. Third, an unspoken language. The looks, the unfinished sentences, the way you just know what they meant without a word being spoken, that's not luck, that's alignment. Fourth, time feels different with them. Hours fly like minutes. But when you're apart, even for a short gap, that time feels heavy. This is one of the clearest signs, and I'll come back to it because it reveals something profound about what makes a bond real. What is a soul connection, really? I've studied thousands of relationships, and I can tell you this: a soul connection is different from everything else. It's not attraction. It's not even compatibility on paper. It's recognition. There are encounters, and then there are collisions of essence. Times when another person doesn't just enter your story, they stir something at the deepest part of who you are. You can't explain it with logic. You can't measure it with surface-level checklists. It feels like home in a place you've never visited. That's what a soul connection is. And when it arrives, you'll know not just by how you feel, but by what starts to unfold around you. This kind of bond doesn't stay hidden. It declares itself through patterns, through intensity, through an undeniable shift inside your inner world. The signs that this is someone your soul has been waiting for you. Start to notice signs, subtle yet strong, that this is not just another person. When they feel that same pull with you, those signs appear too. Not always loud, not always clear, but always real, always meaningful. And if you're awake enough, honest enough, and brave enough, you'll recognize them for what they are. Proof that this moment, this person, this bond means more than any words could ever explain. There is something deeply mysterious about human connection, something that resists explanation, even while it asks to be understood. When two people meet and an unspoken link locks into place, it's not just chemistry, it's not simple attraction. It's as though two frequencies align, creating a harmony that cuts through all the noise of life. Being seen without needing to shout. This isn't about grand gestures or planned speeches. It's about a quiet pull, a gravity that doesn't need validation from the outside world. It's felt in stillness, in silence, in the pauses between the words. When someone feels a soul bond with you, this emotional harmony becomes impossible to ignore. You've likely had conversations where your words went unheard, where you had to explain every feeling, defend every response. Now compare that to conversations where you barely say anything, yet you're fully understood, where a glance across the room says everything. That is what a soul connection does. It makes you feel seen without needing to shout. It's not about putting up an image. It's about being true and being met with the same raw presence in return. And it's rare. That's exactly why it feels so powerful when it comes. They respond to your energy, not just your words. Most relationships work on what's visible: status, appearance, habits, compatibility on paper. But a soul connection ignores all that. It doesn't care for the outer skin. It dives into the inner structure of who you are. From my research, I've noticed something remarkable. Someone with a real soul bond with you starts responding not just to your words, but to the energy behind them. They notice when your tone changes, when your spirit draws back, even when your face hasn't moved. They sense when something is wrong, not because you told them, but because something in them picked it up. That kind of awareness isn't simply a skill, it's a signal that something deeper is happening. There's no acting, no games, no need to impress. This kind of connection isn't something you can plan. You can't scheme your way into it. In fact, the more you try to control or arrange it, the more it slips away. It often surprises you. Maybe in a quiet second. Maybe while laughing together. Maybe in shared silence. There's no acting here, no games, no need to impress. You just exist, and they just exist. And somehow, the meeting of those two truths feels fuller than anything you've ever known before. That's emotional harmony. It's the sense that you're moving in rhythm with another person. It's not always instantly romantic, and that's part of its power. But here's what I want you to understand. It's not always instantly romantic. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes that harmony shows up in moments of deep care or mutual understanding. It's not about needing the other person to make you whole. It's about being fully yourself and seeing that they not only accept it, they're drawn to it. They don't run away from your depth. They don't change the subject when your feelings grow complicated. Instead, they remain steady, still linked because they're not reacting only to your outside. They're responding to something within you that speaks to something inside them. The vulnerability that comes with being truly seen. It's important to understand that this silent harmony isn't always easy. It carries a strange vulnerability because being seen, that clearly can feel unsettling. It breaks apart defenses you've built for years. It questions the masks you've worn just to survive. And in truth, that's the point. Soul bonds interrupt ordinary emotional patterns. They push you out of autopilot. They demand truth because they make it impossible to hide. When someone feels this bond with you, they don't just notice you. They share in your emotional world, often without knowing exactly why. There's a shared empathy that bypasses logic. You might hear yourself saying things you never planned. You might reveal pieces of yourself you once guarded with cold walls, not because you were forced, but because you felt safe enough. That sense of safety is everything. How they hold your weaknesses. When someone has this deep link with you, they don't twist your weaknesses against you. They hold them gently, not from pity, but from respect. They know what it means to be fragile in this world. They know most people listen only to reply, not to understand, and they choose differently. They listen in a way that makes you feel whole, true, valued, even with your flaws. Growth without pressure to change. As time goes on, this kind of emotional harmony builds a space where growth becomes possible. You grow not because they change you, but because being with them makes you want to step more into yourself. You're not shrinking to please them. You're widening to meet the depth of the bond. That's the difference I've observed in my work. In shallow connections, you shrink to fit in. You compress yourself. You become smaller. In soul bonds, you expand to hold the meaning that's forming between you. They don't run from your fire. You'll know someone feels this pull with you when they don't run from your fire. They don't silence your feelings. They don't water down your passion. They lean closer. Not because they have all the solutions, but because they value the link more than the safety of emotional distance. There's no scoreboard, no posturing, just two people recognizing something that doesn't need to be labeled to be real. That's what makes this kind of connection sacred. It doesn't need explanations. You don't have to prove its worth. You feel it in the way you breathe easier around them. You see it in their eyes when words fall short. You hear it in the pauses, not just in the sentences, and you carry it with you even when they are not near. Because a soul bond is not something you leave behind. It lingers like a quiet hum under everything else. When time stops being currency. Something always shifts when such a connection truly exists. Something that resists normal timelines and clear explanations. time starts to behave differently. What should feel rushed or dragged out instead becomes natural. It's not that the hours stop moving, it's that you stop noticing them in the presence of this person. Moments widen, conversations continue into the early hours of morning without a trace of tiredness. Silence fills the air, not with discomfort, but with peace. The usual ticking clock that rules our days fades because something more eternal has entered. That's one of the clearest signs someone feels a soul connection with you. Time loses its control. This isn't a dreamy fantasy. It's not about being so taken that you ignore the world. It's about being so aligned that the world no longer feels like something you need to escape. You're not using each other as a cure for boredom or pain. You're grounding one another in a shared experience that feels both endless and present at the same time. That's very rare. How the bond survives absence. Most people live in relationships that are like transactions, built on what's given and what's taken. They clock in and out of emotional exchanges. But when the bond is real, time is no longer currency. It becomes presence. You'll notice this difference when you're apart, too. In usual relationships, distance brings doubt, worry, and the need for constant reminders. But a soul connection runs on different rules. The bond doesn't fade in absence. It only grows quiet, like a flame that dims but never goes out. You carry them inside you, not in a way that weighs heavy, but in a way that steadies you. The connection stays constant, like a low hum, always in the background. You don't feel forgotten even when you haven't spoken for days. You don't feel replaced, even when life pulls you in other directions. There's a calm knowing that what you share is not fragile. It's rooted in something beyond being close in space. Trust in the bond itself. This isn't about dependence. It's not about obsessing over someone until they take over your identity. It's about trust, not just trust in the person, but trust in the bond itself. You trust the rhythm even when the pace changes. You don't panic when the messages slow down. You don't question your worth when plans shift, because you're not moving from fear. You're moving from harmony. And that trust is only possible when time has already shown you the depth of what you have. When every shared moment has proved that what's between you can survive silence, distance, and even uncertainty, they carry you in their inner world. When someone feels this bond with you, they won't need daily reminders. They won't need constant convincing to stay close. Something in them knows, even when life grows messy. Even when they're fully caught in their duties, their careers, their personal struggles, you live in their inner world, not as a task, not as an obligation, but as a steady presence, as something sacred they return to when they need to remember who they are and what matters most. And you'll notice the same thing happening in yourself. You won't need their constant presence to feel their importance. You won't rely on them to keep you emotionally alive, because the connection doesn't ask that of you. Instead, it becomes a quiet source of strength, something you draw from, something that reminds you of your depth, your value, and your ability to connect beyond the shallow. And in that way, it makes you more whole, not more dependent. Even when apart, you feel the connection. Even when apart, you feel it in the way certain songs touch you differently, in the way you think about conversations long after they've ended, in the way your intuition senses their energy without needing proof. There's almost a kind of telepathy that can grow when two souls are tuned together. It's not magical thinking. It's a result of emotional and mental alignment that I've observed countless times in my research. You begin to sense their needs, their rhythms, their emotional state. And here's what matters. When you face disagreements, duties, missteps, the ground doesn't crumble. When the foundation is a soul bond, those surface struggles don't break the core. You're able to return to one another without starting over from zero. There's a sense of flow. A shared rhythm that picks up right where it left off, no matter how long the silence lasted. The patience that comes with real connection. And then you see something even deeper. This kind of connection teaches you patience. Not the kind of patience that holds frustration, but the kind that trusts timing. You stop rushing outcomes. You stop demanding instant clarity. You begin allowing the bond to breathe, to unfold, to show its depth over time. You no longer see time apart as danger. You see it as needed space for reflection, for individual growth, for the bond to deepen naturally. So if you find yourself in a connection where time stands still when you're together and remains sacred even when apart, don't brush it off. Don't overthink it until it dies. Just notice. Ask yourself these questions. Do you feel rushed or do you feel real? Do you feel drained when you feel expanded? Do you measure time with them in minutes or in meaning? These answers will tell you more than anything else, because when someone feels a soul connection with you, time will not be your enemy. It becomes your companion, bending quietly around a bond that refuses to shrink into fleeting moments. The truth about soul connections: they challenge you. Most people picture soul bonds as soft, poetic, easy experiences, something sweet and gentle. But I need to tell you the truth. It's more layered than that. When someone feels a soul connection with you, it doesn't just soothe. It challenges. It shakes awake parts of you. And what it stirs is not always comfortable. It's your unresolved feelings, your fears, your insecurities, your deep desire to be seen, mixed with your greatest fear of being seen and pushed away. Soul connections carry a kind of growth pressure. They call you into openness, not because they are smooth or painless, but because they are meaningful. The intensity can feel heavy. You might ask yourself, why do I feel so much around this person? And the answer is because your soul recognizes something in theirs. The discomfort of being truly known. This recognition doesn't always feel good at first. Sometimes it feels destabilizing. You might experience emotional turbulence. You might feel raw. You might want to run because the vulnerability is almost unbearable. But that intensity is information. It's telling you something real is happening. In my experience, people often mistake intensity for toxicity. They run from the very depth they've been longing for. They say, this feels too much. What they're really experiencing is, this is too real, and there's a profound difference. Recognizing the authenticity. The way to know if this is a soul connection and not obsession, not fantasy, not manipulation, is to look at what it builds. Does it call you toward your highest self or away from it? Does it make you want to grow, to understand yourself better, to show up more fully in your life? Or does it make you contract? Does it demand you shrink? Does it ask you to apologize for being yourself? A real soul connection expands you. It challenges you, yes, but it expands you. It makes you braver. It makes you more honest. It makes you more you. When the bond is mutual. And here's what I've learned. When the bond is truly mutual, they're experiencing the same thing you are. They're feeling that intensity. They're being challenged. They're expanding too. You're not alone in the experience. You're both in it together. That's how you know it's real. Because real doesn't require convincing. Real doesn't need constant reassurance. Real just is. It exists in the space between you, undeniable and quiet and absolutely certain. Final truth. This changes everything. If you're in a connection like this, understand that it has the power to change your entire life. Not because this person is your other half or your soulmate in some fantasy way, but because soul connections teach you who you actually are. They show you what you're capable of feeling. They reveal your capacity for depth, for loyalty, for love that transcends explanation. They break you open and rebuild you more authentically. And once you've felt that, you can never go back to settling. You can never pretend that surface-level connections are enough. You'll know the difference between attraction and connection, and you'll honor that difference for the rest of your life. That's the real gift of a soul bond. It's not just about the other person, it's about what it teaches you about yourself.